In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to bake out your normal map stamps and your height stamps that you added on to your model inside of Painter, so we can use those extra details in our ambient occlusion and curvature maps for our generators and our texturing process. So up here you can see in the texture set list, I've went in and I've made a height map. So here's some height map information that I added in, and the normals. And I did the same for my other texture set too on the bottom. So I want to make sure that is all turned on for both texture sets. And now let's bake this out of Painter and bring it back in to generate the new maps that we need. Now this is the only way that I know of trying to get this information to be baked into the normal map, into the additional maps for Painter to use. So if there is another process, I would love to know it. But this is the only one I was able to figure out. All right, so let's go up to File, Export Textures, and where we're going to make a new configuration. We're going to go to Presets and hit the plus sign, and it's going to say New Export Preset. So we come up down to this list and right click and say Rename. We'll just call it Normal Export. That should be good. We're going to go to Output Maps, RGB, and we're going to name this Normal Export again, so underscore export underscore, and then I'm going to go over to this little token, and I'm going to make sure we put a texture set with that, and that should give us a good naming convention. The other thing we want to do is, again, we're using RGB, red, green, and blue channels for the normal map, so we have to come all the way down to converted maps on the right hand side, and we need to grab the normal OpenGL file. So we'll just left mouse click on that and drag it right on the RGB box, and it's going to say, where do you want to put it? Well, I want to put it across all three channels. Perfect. Now we've created our preset to use in our export tab. Now over here, we're going to go to config. We're going to drop down, scroll all the way down. We're going to find that normal export that we generated. And if we go to the texture sets and hit the little drop down menu, you can see the maps that are going to get generated from that. So now let's make sure it's going to go to the proper directory. So I'm going to come up here to the top. I'm going to put in my new directory. There it is. I'm going to go to my source images in my Maya project directory, and let's see, let's put it in the export texture one for me. Again, you can put it anywhere you want in this source images, so you can know where you put it in your project files. That's fine. I'm going to save it as a ping, and I'm going to save it as a 16-bit image, and that should be good. So let's do an export. Should relatively go pretty fast when it generates. There it is, and we're just going to say open folder so we can actually see them. So here are the new maps that got generated with our, if I was to double click on it, open this up just a little bit more, you can see the extra detail that got generated onto the normal map. So that's what we're going to use. So let's bring those back in. So I'm going to keep this up, and I'm going to go to Project in the shelf, and with this window I'm just going to select both these files and drag them into the new project, and then the import resource is going to come up. So how do we want to define these? Well, we're going to bring them in as textures, and then where do you want to put it, in what project. You want to put it in the current session that we're currently working in right now, or the actual project, or do we want to save this for future use in other projects? Probably not. Probably just this current project we want to use it for. So I'm going to click on that and say import, and it brings those in. And then all we need to do is go to each texture set here and replace the old normal map with the new one. So we'll click that, and that comes in. So now we can actually turn off our height and our normal maps, and you can see our details are right there. Let's go to the second texture set, do the same thing, drop that in. You can see it kind of reemphasizes that detail, so we want to make sure we turn those off. There we go. So now we've just replaced our old normals that we baked out from a high poly with the normals that we just baked out. So let's go down to additional maps, bake textures, and in here we actually want to generate a new ambient occlusion and curvature map from our normal map. So what we need to do, good thing this left the high poly and all the information that I originally baked. We want to get rid of the high poly, because what that's going to do is going to force Painter's hand to use the normal map to generate the ambient occlusion and curvature map that we need with the new detail. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to come over here to high definition meshes, and we're going to select it and hit this little minus key, and that gets rid of it. All this detail kind of goes out the window. We really don't need none of these parameters. Plus, we're not generating a new normal map. We are going to generate a new world space normal, which doesn't have any parameters. We're going to generate a new ambient occlusion. Again, how long do you want it? How much detail you want? I put it up to 128 for me. Again, it takes a long time to bake, but that's fine. Anything you change here, you need to make sure you apply it to all texture sets. Curvature map is pretty good. I pretty much leave that at detail, but again, if you change anything, make sure you hit apply all. Position, we will not need to change the position, and we will not need to make a new thickness map. So there's no subsurface scattering or anything like that we're trying to do. So new world space normal, ambient occlusion, and curvature is what we have to rebake. So right here, bake all texture sets, and you just let that go. And then let it do its thing, and we'll come back in a few minutes. I'll come back in a few minutes. All right, now that our maps are done baking, if we go to our project, you'll see the new maps. If you hover over them, there's the new curvature maps, and then there's the new ambient occlusion maps. And those replace the old ones in the texture set settings. So they're still really hard to see if what details got baked and what didn't. So the best way to view that is to actually come up to the layers panel, hit the fill layer. If you turn off metal, rough, normal, and height information, and then from the project in the shelf, just drag and drop it into the material mode, or actually not the material mode, but the base color mode right there, and you can see the new curvature map that gets generated from that. So this is a quick way of checking if the maps got generated well. So I'll make another fill layer for the bottom part, and then there's base, and let's just drag and drop that in, and there you go. And then you could do the same thing with your ambient occlusion. Make a new one for both, and then drag and drop. Let's turn off metal, normal, and height, and then drag that onto the base color. You can see the ambient occlusion that got generated for that. It's very kind of hard to see the ambient occlusion. It's usually very light. And then the same thing for the next texture set. Turn off all the other material properties and just leave color. and drag and drop that into the base color, and there's your normal map, or your ambient occlusion map for the bottom piece. So that's a quick way of checking your maps, making sure they all worked. Once you're happy with those, you can just select those extra layers that you put those maps on, because you don't need to put them in like that, and just delete them. And there you go. And that's how you are able to get your new stamped normals and height map or stamped details from Painter, export them back out, and then bring them back in and rebake for your new ambient occlusion and curvature maps. Talk to you guys later.